Well, today is March 10th, 2022. It's the 10th anniversary of our first attempt to spin the biggest top in the world back on March 10th, 2012. And it's quite a story because of what happened subsequently to the attempt. And I've compiled some videos together, edited them together to give you an overview of the day's events and onward, the things that I've learned as a result of that over time. And I hope that this can be an encouragement to you in the things I've learned. And when you look at the documentary and how God so specially intervened in my life, I hope it can give you encouragement to keep trusting God, to take care of you. He knows all about you. And as you trust Him, He can really do some amazing things. Even when you're struggling a bit, God has a way to bring you through. Hope you enjoy the compilation of the videos. Well, I had an idea to have a bigger top, and it certainly has developed into a bigger project than what I anticipated. I've been doing spinning top shows since 1975. I don't know, I don't really have a big desire just to be a world record holder. I've just been spinning tops most all my life.
Last year, lumapit sa akin si Mr. Monk regarding dun sa gusto niyong project, which is to beat the current Guinness Book of World Record for the biggest top.
Just smooth the surface, huh?
Of course, as we're trying to get this big thing together, a lot of things happen. It's taken a while to get the steel plates manufactured, but we finally got them done. We have to find a way to hold the shaft here and hold the shaft there, and yet still allow it to spin freely. We got this bearing, and that's about the biggest one I could find.
This is what you call a bearing, Joe. This is what we need.
Where'd you get that?
Well, there's only 2 of them in the Philippines, and I've got both of them.
Ah, yeah, okay, plenty of room there.
Ngayon, ginagawa na natin yung steelworks for the foundation. Ang target natin, 3 or 4 days from now, nakatayo na yung pinaka-I-beam natin. Tapos na rin ang concreting works natin sa lahat ng structure.
Once we have the cone section on, then we can set up the scaffolding so we can run the machinery down. We're actually doing it by hand. That all comes down to shaping, because the aerodynamics of it is very important that we get that.
We got to try to move almost 1,000 pounds, and we got to try to get it out of here.
You're going to have to remove this 2 feet.
So you want me to break up our floor and dig down another 2 feet beyond? What? Look at this. What do you think?
That'll do the job.
I think it'll do the job.
More than 1,000 kilograms po to. Ito po yung isa sa pinaka-importanting part, yung weight na yung magpapastart dun sa pag-ikot ng trompo natin.
We've gone from one design to another, but we've had a prototype that works. We're now going to try to put together all the pieces to make the biggest top in the world. 23 hours till our scheduled attempt to spin the world's largest top. And I can tell you from personal experience, trying to break a world record on deadline is not easy. All right, here we have the winch that I was able to get from a marine supply in Manila. It's a 5-ton anchor winch. And eventually we want to do this whole tower and the winch stand on a nice concrete base. No time for that before tomorrow. We'll just tie it down the best we can, make or break. As it turned out, we had a very good plan for moving the top to this point, and then what we didn't have was a very good plan on how to get it from the skids up into that position. It's very awkward, very difficult to do, but it's up there. So this is the really good news. The not so good news is I still have not been able to test the winch. We're coming down to the fact that the very first test spin of this top will be the actual world record attempt. I kind of would feel a little better if I really knew it worked. But I think it will. We'll see tomorrow.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a pretty amazing thing that you're witnessing today. Not only is it big here, it's big all around the world. That's the biggest top in the whole world.
What we are going to do right now is the very first ever attempt to spin this at full speed. If you see that top shaft start to come loose, run. Okay, we're about ready to go here. Dapat tatlo kayo hawak sa top. We're about to let it go. Okay, guys, here we go. I have to get to a hospital right away, please. Can I say it again? Please. Hospital right away.
Are you serious?
Back. Look.
Oh, yeah. Whoa! Ambulance, quick! Ambulance!
You know what? We're gonna start in there with Scott. Scott in the front. Don has to keep it a jazz. He'll drive us to the hospital. Who does?
Because we had the officials here for the world record, and it was today, that we needed to spin the top. Byron and I decided to wrap the rope round and round. We got 12 men. So we spun the top. The first attempt, they ran too hard, snapped the rope. The second time, when they went, it was perfect. And the top spun for 19 minutes. Well, we just got to praise the Lord that it spun, and so Joe will be happy now. He got a little bit of a knock on the head, but he will be back, and all this is done to the honor and glory of the Lord.
It was my greatest concern for the whole week prior. One of the gears of the winch exploded.
The cogs jammed on there, and unfortunately, Joe got hit on the head with some flying object, a piece of metal which brought him to the ground.
This up here is where the other piece of gear went in. We found 4. The third piece is embedded here. We covered it over, patched it up. I'm very glad the steel's not embedded in my head.
If the steel fragment had been 1 centimeter lower or 1.5 centimeter to the left, Joe wouldn't be able to reach this hospital alive. He'd have bled right on the spot.
It was penetrated right there, but you can see the impact was right here on the elastic hat band.
The garter protecting a little, the fragment happening to stay just 1 centimeter above and a centimeter to the right of the most critical area that it could have hit. I would agree in that sense. Somebody was looking after Joe that day.
Well, you can say it's a lucky coincidence, or you, like me, can say God knows what's going on and He protects His children. Kala ninyo madali lang, no? Experimentation, making the cart go faster with a bigger scientist for right. And that's what the top will be fighting as soon as it gets top speed. It will go. Yeah! All right. Now, walk away. Hi, I'm glad you were able to watch the video of the documentary about making the biggest top in the world. This was back in 2012. Well, it's a few years later now, and as you can see, I did survive the accident and keep going on and have a few mementos. I have the hat, as it was shown on the video. This was the one that I was wearing. It has a little bit of tear where the sharpest part of the gear hit me. I have the pieces of the gear that came apart on the winch, and we have these two pieces too. And this piece here we just recovered recently out of the top. We have taken down the original Giant Top 1. We're replacing with Giant Top 2.0. And when we took down Giant Top 1 and set it aside to be stored, we were able to dig into it and get out the one piece of the gear that was missing. So we've found all the 4 pieces of the gear, and this is the one that hit me in the head. And as you remember from what the doctor said, I think it would have hit me about like that. It fits pretty good in the hole here, the depression. There's no more skull bone in that hole anymore. The doctor removed it all the skull bone. And he said if I'd been hit a centimeter lower, or 1.5 centimeters to the left, there are major blood vessels there, and I probably would have bled to death right on the spot. And obviously, I'm glad I didn't. I'm alive by the grace of God, but I think we need to remember that all of us are alive by the grace of God. And what made the difference for me at that time when I got hit in the head and I put my hand back, 2 fingers went into the depression of my skull, my first thought was I'm probably going to die. I mean, I'm trained in first aid. I felt the depression in my skull. I felt the bleeding. Said there's no first aid for bleeding inside the skull. You have to get to a hospital. But God spared me, but I was not afraid at the time. He said, well, you were about to die, at least it looked that way. I said, yes, but when I was 17 years old, I put my trust in Jesus. You say, well, it sounds a little corny. Well, you can think what you want. But God worked in my life, and when I was 17, he brought me to a point of knowing that if I would simply trust Jesus, believe he is the Savior, that he would give me eternal life, that he would bring me from this life to his home when this life is over. And with that assurance, were I to die at that time, I knew where I was going. And the challenge, of course, is for you. I hope you don't get hit on the head like that. But if the time is near, do you know where you're going? If you were to die, would you be with Jesus? You say, well, I have no idea. Well, why don't you trust him? We've talked a lot in the Top Show about how to come to know Jesus. And if you haven't watched that whole thing yet, I encourage you to watch it along with the documentary, and make sure that you have a personal faith, that you really believe that Jesus died for you, that he rose from the grave, ascended through the heavens, and preparing a place for you to be with him forever. Just tell him that you really believe, you want to be his. You believe he died for you. Call upon him. Ask him, come into your heart, cleanse you from your sin, make you his child. And he does what he promises. You can put your trust in Jesus and know where you're going when this life is over. Still have the hat, and from the hat, there's still the place where this gear hit in such a way that the sharp part here of the gear made the point there. Now the doctors said that point that hit there was the one that caused a bruise on the dura. He separated the muscles when he got all the skull bone out. In that spot, he separated the muscle, looked in, and he actually took a picture of the membrane of the brain, the dura, and he told me at the time, I was awake, talking to him with anesthesia, he says, your dura is intact. He said, but there's just a very tiny bruise. Now, what's interesting about that is, as I said, we have this hat band here. And he said this hat band might have been enough to save the dura. He said he found a lot of black fibers as he was operating and going down, removing the bone. He couldn't figure out what was the black fibers. Then he realized pieces of my hat had been torn and impressed into the wound. And when I showed him the hat, a fairly thick hat band, as hats are concerned, he said maybe this hat band was enough to prevent the piece of gear from lacerating or penetrating the dura. Now, the interesting thing about that story is that about 5 or 10 minutes before we actually did the attempt, I was being interviewed by the people making the documentary, and I had my hat on, and it was a sunny day. I had my hat down about like this, and as you can see, we have a pretty open area. Right, this is the place where the impact was. Have a pretty open area there to hit. Well, right before we went to try, the cameraman was videoing me for an interview at that point, and he said, there's too much shade on your face. You have to lift up. So I lifted up the hat like that so I could see more, and here you see this hat band came completely down onto the spot where the gear was going to hit. God is amazing. I had no clue what was going on, but a simple request from the cameraman to adjust my hat for the interview may have made a very big difference in the outcome when I got hit on the head. I wanted to give a little more background on some of the things that happened on March 10th, 2012, when we had the accident with the giant top. We talked a little bit about the gear and the pieces and the hat band, different things we didn't expect. One of the things that frustrated me the whole week before the attempt was we weren't able to test the winch, and I was really pushing for that. You can even see from the video documentary that it was one of my big concerns. And I was very frustrated that we hadn't been able to test it till the day of the attempt. So after I was hit in the head and Went to the hospital while I was waiting for the operation, had the operation. For a good 24 hours or so, replaying in my mind what went wrong. And my first conclusion was, we didn't do enough testing. I had never done anything like this, obviously not on that scale anyway, but we had another big top, 28 kilogram top that we were spinning from dropping a weight from a tree. This was a much bigger project, but still anything in the past that I would do, whether tops or other project developments, before putting into use, we would do pretty extensive testing. Well, as you know, we did not test this winch. And so my conclusion was, the failure was we just didn't do enough testing. And I was taking that as a lesson, and it was my mistake. And yes, it probably was. But then, as I kept thinking, I realized something else. I was holding the winch back this way with my left hand, and I was watching the top over this way, and the winch was at my back. When I released the winch, I turned to look at the top spinning and got hit in the head right here. Now, had I been testing the winch in advance, had we done a test in advance, I probably would have been holding the brake of the winch here and watching the winch as I let it go, because with the testing we may not even had it connected to the top at the time. Had that scenario been the case, rather than this piece of metal hitting me in the head, quite possibly it could have come and hit me right between the eyes. So I had a whole week of frustration, not realizing that even through my frustration, God very well may have been saving my life. And it was a lesson to me. Let's not get so frustrated on things that don't fit our schedule. It may be that God has a better plan. It may be that God's even saving our life by allowing the frustrations rather than making it smooth sailing at that particular time. Well, I wanted to say one more thing about the incident, that accident back March 10th, 2012. There's another thing I would like to mention, and that's just about the power of prayer. When I got hit and went down and was being treated, people began to pray. And of course, we're in an electronic age. People started to message others. And all around the world, people began to pray for me. Now, as I was loaded in and being taken to the hospital, I could feel my strength and energy draining. It was an incredibly painful thing to endure. And of course, the body goes into shock with major trauma. And as we were going in, I had a good friend, a medical doctor, who happened to be there the day we did the attempt, and he rode along the hospital with me. He's the one who said, "Joe, let's go right to where a neurosurgeon is available because your vital signs are stable, the bleeding's not too bad." We went right to a very good hospital with a very good neurosurgeon who was able to help me. And I kept getting weaker and weaker. And then the strangest things happened. It was about an hour and 15 minutes to the hospital. About 1 hour after the accident, about 15 minutes before the hospital, I went through a 5-minute stretch where my strength returned. I felt normal. I was talking normal. I was joking a bit. And when I got to the emergency department, my emotional, mental recovery was so significant. They did not even think I was seriously injured. You had swelling going, so they couldn't tell there was a depression in my skull. That came out after the CAT scan. Even the doctors and the neurosurgeon, when they first looked, thought there'd be a little bit of just a little bit of cleaning up, a little nick on the skull maybe. And when they looked at the CAT scan, that whole area had been crushed like eggshell, a big depression, and all that bone had to be removed. And I don't have any explanation of why I could, going into shock and getting weaker and weaker, just before arriving in the hospital, have my strength, sense of humor, normality return for that time. And I believe it's the power of prayer. People all over the world praying for me. God was gracious enough to give me some relief and release even before the operation ever took place. Well, I hope you enjoyed the compilation of these videos. There are some longer versions of these videos, some of them here on YouTube, some of them on the web pages we've been working on. We hope to get 2 web pages up before too long with more information apart from just the things we have on our YouTube channel. We'll keep you informed of that, but I hope you enjoyed these thoughts for this day, the 10th anniversary since the accident in 2012. Thanks for watching.